Have you checked the children? You're a little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the horror show. I'm Cecil, Laird.
Fuego here!
Robert Duell.
That's right. We are here to, in case you couldn't tell by Fuego, although he opens every episode like that. So, in case you couldn't tell by what he did, we are here to discuss Godzilla vs. Kong, otherwise known as Godzilla vs. Kong. And we are going to be discussing it in depth. We are going to talk non-spoilery, and then we are going to have a separate spoiler section of this same review. We're not going to do two separate reviews. So, frankly, I think it makes more sense to do a spoiler review considering it's available on HBO Max. But for the few people that might watch the review but don't want to be spoiled, we're going to have a separate section first. So, let's get into the non-spoilerific aspects of Godzilla vs. Kong, the fourth entry into the Monsterverse, the Legendary Monsterverse. And I'm going to start off and say that I enjoyed this movie. We all saw it theatrically. We went to, not only theatrically, but we went to the Cine Capri, which is in Arizona, supposedly one of the largest screens. The original Cine Capri was easily the largest screen. Personally, I don't think the new Cine Capri matches the size of the old one, but nonetheless, it was a big screen. We wanted to see it on a big screen. The only bigger one is IMAX, but we didn't want to do all that mess. So we did a big screen, better than our TV, and damn sure better than our phone, which we'll also talk about. But this movie, I am definitely glad I saw in the theater, and I will say I had a good time, but ultimately it's the third in the four Monsterverse movies for me. I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it as much as two of the other movies, but it was still a good time. So if you just want a good time, it's there for you, but if you want like real dread or real, oh, that's so cool, go to a couple of the other movies personally. So, Fuego, what do you have to say?
Yeah, man, this was not one that I think I was anticipating quite as much as you, but nonetheless, I loved Kong Skull Island, and I thought the other two Godzilla movies were pretty good, and this is more of the pretty good variety. Strangely enough, I felt like there was an overcrowding of characters of the human variety in this movie, and there's like an A story and a B story. There's almost like a Team Godzilla and a
Dude,
team
there's a C, a D, and an E story as well, let's be honest.
Yeah, and none of those stories really worked very well for me, but the action is very impressively shot, epic and awesome. I was surprised that this wasn't like a 2.5 hour film. It was less than 2 hours.
He purposely made it that way.
Yeah, which makes sense, I guess. But yeah, man, I feel like Adam Wingard did a hell of a job directing this movie, and despite a stacked cast, the people were similar to my criticisms of King of the Monsters, just rather forgettable. Aside from this podcaster guy, I thought that he was actually relatively amusing. Everybody else, yeah, not so awesome. But yeah, I still had fun with it. Big dumb fun. I think that's a term I've used quite a bit with regards to films like this on the channel before, and I was satisfied in that regard. Is it a good movie? No, but did I enjoy it? Was I entertained? Yeah, I was definitely entertained by this movie. So,
Roberto.
Okay. I guess I'm on the minority on this one. I love the shit out of this movie. Like, I grew up watching like the original King Kong, Godzilla, and everything like that. I still have the VHS and everything from the Japanese version. Yeah, like I had like reiterating from Fuego, I had big dumb fun with this movie. Like, and just especially too in like and again, like I did enjoy Skull Island and everything like that, and like the other Godzillas. Is this on the top? Not necessarily, but I would say it's up there. Like for what they gave us in this movie, and still on the anticipation that I had, I thoroughly enjoyed it and was happy when I walked out of the theater. That's really, yeah.
That's fair. That's fair, and I don't blame you for it. You're probably just a little more forgiving in some aspects than me.
Yeah,
But
true.
that doesn't
critical.
mean, yeah, I mean, it's a perfectly valid opinion. And this movie is made to be a popcorn movie, and they knew that. It's directed by Adam Wingard, who is of Blair Witch fame, right?
Yeah, and what else? You're Next. I mean, horror guy through and through for the most part. So,
Which is interesting, right? When you think about it, Godzilla King of the Monsters was Michael Dougherty of Krampus and Trick or Treat. This one is Adam Wingard of Blair Witch and the other one you mentioned, which I've already forgotten again. You're Next. And didn't he just get tapped to do something even like bigger?
Thundercats.
Thundercats. Yeah, I got that news.
Yeah.
Just like
Live
2
action
days ago, he's doing a live action Thundercats movie, which, to be honest with you, I am so down for.
Okay,
I
yeah, I'm definitely
love
gonna have
the
to look that up.
Thundercats. I like Thundercats more than He-Man, so I'm more excited about the Adam Wingard Thundercats movie than I am about the Kevin Smith Motu reboot. But I am excited about that as well. That's a complete sidestep. Adam Wingard knows what he's doing. He did a good job. Millie Bobby Brown returning from Godzilla King of the Monsters. Her father returning from the same movie. And we also had a conspiracy podcaster played by the cop from Child's Play's reboot. And he was fun. He was funny enough. But
He's my favorite character.
yeah, I enjoyed him. Millie Bobby Brown ultimately didn't do a goddamn thing.
Yeah.
And
neither did her father. It's like, why are they even?
then her best friend Russell from Deadpool 2 also didn't do a goddamn thing until the very end of the movie, where the thing he did made no sense as to its effect. So we'll get into all of those details in the spoiler section, but talking about the story, it is, like Fuego kind of alluded to, it is a Kong story. It is more of a sequel to Kong Skull Island than anything else, but incorporating elements of the Godzilla movies, obviously. But Kong is the protagonist for the most part, and I liked that about it, to be honest with you. But it's about Kong, and they've been keeping him on Skull Island to try and protect him from Godzilla, thinking Godzilla would come for him as soon as he left the island, which it's never really explained as to why Godzilla doesn't come to the island, why he's protected on the island.
There's like a kaiju awareness of each other that they, like.
But why not? Why on the island is he exempt, and anywhere else he's not? Anyway, there's a couple of plot holes here and there, but Kong has to leave the island. It attracts the attention of Godzilla. There's a throwdown, and then Kong has to go on a completely different quest with the humans for a reason, while Godzilla remains where he is doing his thing. And I can't go much further into detail without getting into the spoilers for essentially the last third of the movie. So that is the overallness of the story. And I will say that all this movie needed was Kong and Godzilla punching each other, so it didn't really need a tremendous amount of story. Unfortunately, they tried to make sure there was story there, but what I think they did was, I personally feel like they overpacked the story with too many, as again, I think one of you alluded to, too many human subplots. There was, just too many different humans that had different things going on that had to have time devoted to them, which, I guess made sense in order to develop what was happening with the kaiju, but that stuff's not interesting. It's the kaiju stuff that's interesting, so they fall into a familiar trap for me when trying to tell the story by giving so much attention to the human characters when all we want is the kaiju. I feel like they did a better job with tying the human stories into the kaiju story this time around. However, there was still too much and too many human stories. There's Millie Bobby Brown and Russell from Deadpool 2's story. There's the podcaster's story. There's her father's story. There's the female scientist story. There's Alexander Skarsgård's stories. There's the kind of evil corporate chick story. Like there's so many different stories that they're cramming in to a movie where you don't really care about the human stories. So it kind of it kind of ends up tripping over itself in different ways than the other movies did. But, you know, ultimately it's a story of Godzilla versus Kong, and I will give credit, there was more of a Godzilla versus Kong aspect to the movie than I thought there was going to be. I thought there was going to be one fight, and then they have to work together for something. And without spoiling anything, there was more than one fight that happened, and they went a bit deeper with that than I anticipated them going. So again, I'm dancing around spoilers, but story-wise, I was both happy with getting what I expected, at the same time unhappy with the oversaturation of seemingly extra human stories. Fuego?
I was just happy that in comparison with King of the Monsters, we didn't have a character with unbelievable idiocy for her intention, like with Millie Brown's mother in the previous film.
So
I
dumb.
hated the motivation of that character so much. It was beyond illogical. I thought the people were, despite being rather dull at times, you know, I felt like they were written in a more intriguing manner. Skarsgård is kind of our main human.
There was
basically.
some rough writing at times, I gotta say. But
some of the
continue.
dialogue's pretty laughable. That's gross.
Oof.
And, like, couldn't they have written something a little...
Oh, there was a lot of cringe-worthy dialogue, but please continue.
Yeah, and also the fact that it kind of became a journey to the center of the earth kind of situation, without spoiling it. I don't know, this just didn't feel very fresh to me, but then again, it's a remake of battles we've seen before, so, you know, what are you going to do in that regard?
Apparently there were even throwbacks during the battle to the original movie with their battling. I can't remember exactly what, but I heard some people talking afterwards saying, oh yeah, there were throwbacks to their first fight, like they did the same thing they did in the first fight, but in a bigger, badder way.
Yeah.
I think I know one of the things, but I can't talk about it till we talk about spoilers. So.
Yeah, but as far as like Damien Bakar's character, the
Damien
evil,
Bashir?
Bashir Bakar, I've heard it pronounced a couple different ways, you know. I mean, basically our guy who creates who becomes the main antagonist eventually, the main villain. I don't know, like he was as cookie cutter.
Oh yeah, okay.
As you could imagine, and you know,
he was a bit more serious version of Pedro Pascal from Wonder Woman 84.
I can see that. Yeah, I could. But yeah, man, I mean, this isn't reinventing the wheel. This is nothing revolutionary in any regard. It's really just putting some new gloss and glimmer on things we've seen before. And, you know, story-wise, it was serviceable enough, and, you know, very awesomely orchestrated battles, which we'll obviously get into once we start talking effects. So
serviceable.
Yeah.
Enough. Robert?
Yeah, no, honestly, like with the story, like, there again, I'm gonna keep it short because you guys kind of already touched on some of the issues that I definitely at least had with our human characters. And again, we've said it before with any of the big monster movies, it's not about the human characters. We want to see more of the monsters. So that was always the issue with any of the Godzilla movies or the kaiju movies, when they try to throw in too many of those little subplots with all these different little human characters and everything, which at the same time kind of diluted the rest of the other Godzilla movies. Take like even the first one that came out for like the remake and everything. It was just overloaded with that lovey subplot that they had, and I personally thought that definitely took away from the first remake. But at least talking on that though, for how they're building up this world, I think they're doing a great job. And even with how they even did into the story, how they wrote it is basically you can still bring so much more into this. And even with what we had towards the end, with kind of keeping off of spoiler stuff, they could still bring that back if they wanted to. If you know what I'm talking about, for the final fight kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, so other than that, I'm not gonna. We'll jump up to the next topic and everything. But no, definitely the human aspect was the weakest part of the story.
Now that kind of leads us into the acting. You know, we had a lot of returning characters. Millie Bobby Brown did a serviceable job, but you know, she didn't have enough to do. Russell from Deadpool. I hate to keep calling him Russell from Deadpool, but I mean, let's be honest.
He's always Taika Waititi's Hunt for the Wilder.
Yeah, he oh, okay. Well, he was Russell from Deadpool 2, and in this one, he's literally, what does he get called?
Josh.
No, not Josh. No, what was the nickname?
Oh, Tapwater.
Tapwater. Yeah.
Tapwater.
So he's called Tapwater, which is literally as bland as he is throughout most of the movie. So they kind of, it's weird, they kind of shot themselves in the foot by accident sometimes. So acting-wise, you know, here's what I will say about the acting. The humans were okay. They did their job. No one really took me out of it necessarily, except that some of the writing was so dead obvious that it was actors delivering lines rather than organic story beats. But what I will say that surprised me was the acting level of Kong. And it kind of ties into effects when we get to it, but my God, did they do such a good job of conveying emotions through both Kong and Godzilla, to be honest with you, but mainly Kong. Kong looks better than Kong has ever looked, which technologically wise, it makes sense, but from a viewer standpoint, Kong was real to me. Like,
most definitely.
So on point. Like, the big antagonist that shows up in the last third looked so kind of fake to me compared to Kong, even in shots that were back to back. Like, one looked like it was a Photoshop cutout, and then it cut back to Kong, and it's like, oh, I'm back in the real cinematic world here. He looked that good that he was putting some of the other characters to shame. But we'll get to that. But acting wise, yeah, Kong had some acting. The humans were okay, but the acting of the monsters is what I think is notable.
Well, and that's where I would contend.
Actually,
that,
Fuego, I'm going to stop you right there, and I'm going to say, Robert, why don't you give your opinion first this time?
Okay, all right. Yeah, no.
Frankly, Robert should have gone before me, if we're being honest here.
Whatever. No. So basically, was it? So yeah, acting. Sorry, I remember where we're at.
Yeah.
No, it definitely between honestly, for human actors, I would say the little girl was our star of it.
Yeah,
her interaction.
She's like 7 years old, and she outshined everyone else.
Exactly, but also too, it's like her interaction basically with a CGI monster and whatnot, and then the conveying of the emotions, especially to like what you were saying with Kong, is there was a lot through the eyes. And
she was so good with the.
She those tears, man. She really did.
What else has she been in? Was she in? I swear to God, she's been in something else that I've seen. Anyway, go ahead. I swear she reminds me so much of the girl in Resident Alien, the little girl friend in Resident Alien. If you're watching, the friend of the kid that can actually see the alien. But nonetheless, she's a tremendous little actress. Yeah. She's a great little actress. But continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. But yeah, no, she especially outshined it, because a lot of times, like you've heard, it's sometimes hard to act accordingly. You know, how with basically a green block or whatever that you're trying to act towards. So with
tennis balls on a stick.
Exactly. And with her showing as well as she did, honestly,
agreed. There's some tears and shit that you like.
Good job for you. And I'm not gonna hold this back. There was a couple times, especially with her interactions with Kong, I had a little frog in my throat.
That's awesome.
It was fucking adorable as shit.
Dude, I love to hear that. I love to hear that a movie can be that effective, right? Like,
yeah, and I think a lot of it. Yeah, and I think of a lot of it too is again, being such a fan of, you know, the original Monsterverse and everything, growing up with Kong and Godzilla, seeing this remake and actually being very happy with the remake. And I'm usually extremely critical on any remake, Evil Dead. But
that's a great remake.
It's grown up. Yeah,
it's awesome. Shut the fuck up. One of the best remakes.
It is one of the goriest movies I've ever seen.
It is.
Which is why it's so awesome.
I will say this. I will give it that.
The
credit.
house spits
the
body
gore,
parts out. Fuck
the
off. That's
gore.
awesome.
You know what? Fuck you. I'm talking.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
No, the gore in that movie and the effects were beautiful, disgusting. I absolutely loved it. But the story and the fucking lore that they changed around can go die in the garbage.
Well,
Other
let's
than
circle
that-
back to Kong and Godzilla, though.
Yeah, let's go back to certain.
Fair enough.
You got me all feisty on other shit.
Yep.
All right, let's throw it over to Fuego now.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna echo what you were saying, man, because the fact that like that girl's the young new additions interactions with Kong, and this is probably where a lot of Godzilla fans may feel a little cheapened by the film, because I felt like they legit humanized Kong so much in this movie. He felt like a real, actual character as opposed to just like a fighter in a ring in Hong Kong or, you know, whatever.
They
And
did
so-
that with Godzilla last time, though, with Professor Serizawa, right? And Serizawa got
kinda.
right up in Godzilla's face, you know, when Godzilla was dying before the bomb went off. But Godzilla also got like right up close to a human in the 2014 Godzilla and didn't attack. You know what I mean? Just looked at him and then went back to fighting the Mutos. So like they did the humanization of Godzilla, they just didn't do it in this movie. This movie was focused on Kong.
Yeah, and they took their time to get there too, because Godzilla didn't even show up in the movie until like what 15-20 minutes in. You know?
I think even longer than that, but yeah.
Maybe, yeah. It's the bit where he's in the ocean that we see in the trailer, and so that even so, like when the rumble actually does go down, kind of this is where I have to dance around spoilers. Like with the sense of mutual respect that we get at a point is pretty cool. And
Fuck yeah, it was.
Well, there's no wait. In that first fight, there's no mutual respect.
No. He's talking about later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's where I have to dance around it, because you know I don't want to spoil who the victor is or anything like that, because we do get a like there is a defeat that goes down. You know,
Dude, there's a badass brawl, and that shit was cool as hell. Like it was damn near
the fighter I wanted won. That's all I know. I was excited about it.
Yeah, same with
like and with conviction. Like there was never a contest, and quite frankly, this movie proved it. But we're gonna we'll dive into it into the spoiler section. So those of you that want to hear us talk in depth, we'll get there. We're almost there, actually. Let's talk about the filmmaking before we get to the effects. I think it was a very well shot movie. There were decisions made though, so I give Adam Wingard equal parts credit as well as a couple of question marks. So I loved how a lot of it was shot. He went creative with a ton of shots. There was at least two, maybe three different shots where something happened and you literally followed something happen across screen which took you upside down, and he continued all the way until you were right side up again. And like I thought there was a lot of creative stuff like that was good, but he also made the distinct decision to speed up the kaijus during the fight. They moved faster in this movie than they've moved in any other movie. They specifically slowed them down in the other movies to make it feel like they're big, hulking creatures throwing big, hulking creatures around. And in this movie, he sped it up. There's a lot of times where they're throwing each other way too fast for their mass to actually allow. And I think that some people might consider that nitpicky, but it didn't feel realistic within this world that they've set up over the course of 3 movies.
Yeah, it felt like a video game in that regard.
Yes,
you know, as opposed to the lumbering presence you would presume these just big, just monstrosities.
So I wasn't the only one that felt that way. Did you feel sped up too, Fuego?
I didn't think about it much at the time, but it definitely felt a little more rapid fire in that regard, and I think they just were going for that gloss and that, you know, just like speed demon sort of thing. I don't know. I mean, you know, like once again, video gaming is the best way that I could describe the fights, and I was entertained by that. I mean, there's a video game in the 90s called King of the Monsters that I friggin' loved. and you know, it was it's a badass video game. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, if
But
you're- if
filmmaking
you're
wise, I mean, ultimately filmmaking wise, I loved it. I just didn't agree with that particular decision. But I did like how it was directed, and quite frankly, we got about 3 what I would consider extreme close-ups of Godzilla that we've never gotten before,
They
and
look
I
nice.
loved them. They looked dope. Like, get me close to Godzilla's fucking emotive reptilian face. I gotta give credit where credit's due. If we're talking about the filmmaking, I had some issues, but I also was really happy with some things that I saw.
Which change of pace with all the criticism Gareth Edwards' version had, where you barely saw him.
That was trash. Gareth Edwards' version is easily the 4th in this 4-movie series by a long shot. Like, to me, it's Godzilla King of the Monsters, Kong Skull Island, Godzilla vs. Kong, and then way down here is Godzilla 2014. That's how I look at it.
Fair enough, honestly. Fair enough.
But so filmmaking wise, before we get to effects, Robert, what do you think?
No, filmmaking, like, it was visually beautiful. Between like the sets and everything and how all that was designed, but no, like there was no gripes that you could say honestly about this movie.
Could you tell a difference in the directing of this one versus King of the Monsters?
To a point and everything, but it's like you said, especially with the fight scenes, those being kind of more sped up, not being that lumbering kind of hulky aspect. But honestly, I liked it.
So it worked for you.
It did.
Okay.
It really did, especially because of how Kong is, him being an ape, he can move. He'd actually be moving a lot more fluidly than what Godzilla would be as a giant fucking lizard.
I agree with
And
you.
now you're reminding me of when the girl calls him a monkey at one particular point.
Oh,
and
yeah, I
just
know.
like face palm. And
Oh,
like,
I know.
She's the daughter of the brilliant.
Yeah, she's a dumb.
Absolutely dumb.
Ape! He's an ape!
There's a distinction. Now, so did you guys like the fact that this one, I can't remember King of the Monsters well enough to know if they did a lot of these human perspectives where they were almost like looking up from the ground.
They did.
2014 they did.
Did they in 14?
They did in King of the Monsters as well, especially when like Ghidorah was smashing army dudes with his fucking paws or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, the whole human perspective, like just that viewpoint, and that's what we're supposed to.
I feel like they maybe did it a
associate
little more in this one, though.
I mean, that's why I'm mentioning it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a valid point.
A lot more apparent.
Especially during the first initial fight that we got, we had a lot more of that, and personally, that took away out of that scene. We could have literally done away with most of those human perspective shots during our first initial fight, and that fight would have been 10 times better.
It still has to be such a daunting process dealing with like completely rendered environments like this for a filmmaker, you know. And
I did like the fact that we got like different locales for the fight.
Oh yeah,
you know, like I thought that was cool. Yeah,
different levels, like what Fuego was saying, like video game and shit.
Yeah, indeed.
Fuego, any other thoughts on the actual filmmaking before we hit the effects?
Nothing distinctive, at least. I mean, dare I say, though, I still, after having recently watched Pacific Rim, there was just something about the way Guillermo shot that where I felt the scale of the creatures and the robots. I'm forgetting the name of them in that, but
the Jaegers.
Jaegers. Yeah, there was just something about the way Guillermo filmed that movie where it just seemed bigger than just about any of these other similar sorts of films that I've watched previously. And while I think Wingard did a good job, like, nonetheless, there is just that, at least as far as ones I've seen in this modern era of sorts, still probably, is at the top of the mountain. So.
Something I noticed was the presence of a very... I don't know if this is a term, but you guys will understand it if I use it. Thorian use of rainbow color.
Yes.
So there's a lot of from the very opening, literally with the logos, there are rainbow electric highlights that go through, and now, it lets you know, like, hey, this represents something coming in this movie that you haven't seen before. And so that goes towards effects, and then we might as well start segueing into the effects, right?
I don't think the vibe of this movie was as dark as some of the previous entries in these legendary.
No, I agree.
This is more of a Kong movie though too. So they had it like the Kong movies, even like so far we've only had now this being the second one, but they've actually had a lighter tone than what the Godzilla movies have. The Godzilla movies have been more about that the despair and like destruction. Kong is more of that protection and hope kind of thing.
Agreed. That's a fair point. Exactly. So effects-wise, I mean, let's get into it. This is an effects-heavy movie. Everything looks good, but personally, I think Kong looks the best. Godzilla looks the second best, and then anything beyond that, well, the thing in the third act looks third best. But there's stuff leading up to it that you see, like the flying, what look like flying skull crawlers, right? Essentially, at one point, that's cool. And that's a fun scene, and you know the
weird pterodactyl looking things that
the bird, like the weird vulture things too, right? The
bat things or whatever.
The bat vulture or whatever the things are. But
you get to chew on some people, which is fun.
So there's a little bit of all of that, but man, there's just nothing like the big main fights between Kong, Godzilla, and blank, which we'll get to. You know what I mean?
It's been spoiled on Twitter, and a lot of people
who cares? We're not spoiling it yet.
I know.
But yeah, so I mean, effects-wise, I think everything is where it needed to be. Nothing pulled me out of it, and quite frankly, the level of amazingness of Kong is what helped me key into his emotions. And really, you know, what they were trying to make the heart of the story. So I think the effects are fantastic. Fueguissimo, you go first this time.
Yeah, man. If the effects in this film were subpar, there would be a big sort of problem. I mean, you know, even in the Michael Bay stuff, the effects are fantastic in those films, even if they're big dumb fun, as I often say. But I mean, the expressiveness in Kong's face and just the amount of emotion that you're able to get from the way that they rendered this ginormous ape, it really surprised me, not just from the interactions with the young girl, but I mean, even in like a couple instances of his just inherent rage and, you know, just like wanting to just bash and destroy and everything. Like I felt his, you know, vigilance in that regard too. So I mean, he looked so much better in this, in my estimation, than even in Kong Skull Island a few years ago. So.
And so there's only one moment that I think was lacking, and it was a moment that I pointed out in the trailer that we did a reaction to, where Godzilla, they're fighting on the carrier. And Godzilla falls into the water, and there's not nearly enough reaction from the water. He slips right in, and there's almost no splash and whatever. And I'm like, this doesn't look real. And when I watched the movie, I noticed that they cut away as soon as he hits the water, as opposed to letting him sink into it with no splash. So they saw what I saw, and they chose not to fix the effect, but rather cut away from the effect before you could see the nastiness of it. So that's something I had to bring out, because I literally mentioned it in the trailer reaction. That is the only effect that looks like dog shit, and they literally cut it out. So I had to mention that. Otherwise, yeah, the effects were dope. I mean, this was a fun movie. Yeah,
always got to
fuck off nitpicking. That's not nitpicking. That's being a good eye.
Always got to find something negative, ass.
It's having a good eye, cock.
Criticism.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
All right, so that's going to do it for our non-spoiler section, you guys.
Hey, hold up. I didn't even talk anything about effects yet.
Fair enough, Robert. I take that L. Yes, please.
No,
discuss.
So we've already obviously talked about the monsters and everything, but one thing that needs highlight is the environment.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good point.
The environment is another thing that's a big highlight of this movie. And there's a couple places and everything where it was mentioned in the previous movie, which would kind of be, I don't know, would it be spoiler?
we can't discuss where the big.
Yeah.
No.
Exactly. Okay, so just know that it's absolutely stunning how they designed the landscape, even between like from the opening scene when we meet back up with Kong to the first initial fight and so on and so forth. They visually built this world fantastically.
I agree, and I know what you're talking about, and I want to talk about the production design for that as well. So we'll talk about that in the spoiler section. So that's going to do it for our non-spoiler section, right? Robert, is that going to do it for our non-spoiler section?
We're good.
All right, cool. All right.
I thought the music choices were kind of derpy, personally.
The music was
It didn't, I didn't run up against that, but it's a fair criticism.
I chalked it more up to Millie Bobby Brown, 80s because of Stranger Things.
Well, I mean, even the song that they end the film without.
Yeah, but okay,
but
those couple of songs and everything. But I was talking more of like the synthwave stuff and everything. But the actual song, the actual songs that you use, I liked and everything. They're good little classics.
Yeah, I didn't run up against any issues there. But you might not be alone, Fuego. So it's a valid thing to bring up for sure.
Yeah, just wanted to. So.
All right, guys. So why don't you let us know if you don't want to be spoiled? Stop the video here, or better yet. Click save and add to watch later, so that way you can come back and watch the rest of our review as we talk about spoilers. So we are going to jump into the spoilers here. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here come the spoilers. So we are going to, I'm going to say that the third act baddie that we're talking about is, of course, telegraphed everywhere. It is Robot Godzilla.
It's Mecha Godzilla, dickhead.
As the character clarifies at one particular point, he's like, "No, that's not Robot Godzilla. That's
exactly."
Who
You
gives
say
a,
it
like,
right.
It's the same goddamn thing.
No,
Suck a
no. You say
What's
it
the
right.
difference
you don't
between
say it at
Mecha
all.
and Robot, Robert?
Because it sounds cooler, dick.
But yet, there was a lot of people predicting that they were going to tie in the King Ghidorah head or whatever, and they kind of did.
They did.
But
They
that's
did.
where I was talking about.
I was thinking it was going to be Mecha Ghidorah, but yeah.
Well, because originally, we're part of the theory of everything I was talking is like, okay, yeah, they had the head of Ghidorah and everything. Are they gonna put it inside and basically encase it around making Mecha Godzilla and doing it like that? But how they ended up doing it with this whole like interface, but what basically like a
Remote
mind transmission.
operating. It was
Remote
an ROV.
operating. Yeah.
Essentially,
like,
Mecha Godzilla was an
cool as
ROV.
shit. Yeah,
It was,
like,
but then it achieved sentience, and it didn't
randomly
make sense as it randomly achieved sentience, and then it didn't make sense as to why it just wanted to attack everything. AI just doesn't want to necessarily attack everything. But nonetheless, we got Mecha Godzilla, and Godzilla is getting his ass kicked by Mecha Godzilla, and then Kong has to step in to try and help. But so here's the weird thing they did. So Kong and Godzilla had two big fights, right? Round one was on the sea, so Godzilla whooped Kong's ass. Kong manages to escape and almost pass out, and the movie conveniently lets Godzilla mongoose out of the water and see that Kong isn't moving, and so he determines that Kong is dead, and then he just leaves. And it's like, no.
Okay.
If he's trying to destroy another Titan, he's gonna finish the job, not just be like, everything looks okay. Woo!
Yeah. I will say one thing though, like with that shot when we got that nice little shit-eating grin on Godzilla's face.
Seeing Godzilla's smile was dope. I gotta be
like
honest.
that
Stupid, but dope.
You lay there and take it. Yeah, that's basically what he was saying.
So that was the first fight, and then they fight again, and even a character calls the fight early, right? He says round 2 goes to Kong, and then Godzilla comes back and pummels Kong's ass in that same fight. So let's be honest, Godzilla wins this shit so much easier than Kong. He can't defeat Mega Godzilla on his own. He does need Kong's help, but all Kong does is distract Mega Godzilla. Kong can't beat Mecha Godzilla until Godzilla charges his axe. The axe, which is basically the B plot of Kong, you know, or the B plot of the movie where Kong has to go, like Fuego said, to the center of the earth and find something, either his family or whatever. He ends up finding this axe, which he ends up using against Godzilla. And I didn't understand. It finally clicked while I was watching the movie towards the back part of it. So they're saying the entire time that this would be a rematch, except that it isn't a rematch, because the last time Kong and Godzilla fought was their ancestors. It was Kong's ancestors fighting Godzilla's ancestors in a completely different place called the Hollow Earth, which is something we'll get to as well in the spoiler section now that we're here. But so the axe, I was like, why is there an axe that absorbs Godzilla's breath and all this shit from the trailer? What it is the axe is made from the bone of a kaiju as well as a ancient Godzilla fin. I didn't put it together until towards the end that it was a Godzilla back fin that was the axe itself, which is why it could hold Godzilla's charge and everything like that. So
Radiation.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool once I figured that out. But up until then, I was like, this doesn't make sense. They're in Hollow Earth. There's tons of humanoid built stairs and structures when there's clearly not been any humans down in Hollow Earth. There's literally like you plug the axe into this hole in the ground and it powers something. Like, where the fuck did that come from? There's a lot of dumb writing, if we're talking about spoilers, when it comes to explaining away a lot of what happens in this movie. Because movie. Like, literally, you'd have to say that a bunch of times. I was disappointed in a lot of the writing of this movie, now that we can talk spoilery about it. And the fact that it was convenient and whatever, all over the place, but it doesn't take away from the fact that it was entertaining. So, what is the first spoiler you want to talk about, Fuego?
Well, I mean, just the fact that this movie didn't really do anything that surprised me. You know, to be fair, I told you guys, you know, off camera many times leading up to this, I was like, yeah, they're gonna, like, our two main billing peeps are gonna fight, and then they're gonna team up against a bigger bad. Like, I pretty much anticipated that throughout. The fact that they are both beloved characters. And I also did not think for a second Kong was gonna win said battle. I mean, Godzilla, it's not Kong versus Godzilla, it's Godzilla versus Kong. The top billing just kind of, you know, telegraphs things to a degree for me. And so, yeah, I mean, as satisfying and cool as it was to see said fight, did it do anything that surprised me? Nah, not really, unfortunately. So, you know, that is definitely one of my biggest criticisms, is the fact that I was not really surprised by much as far as the script of this film goes. So.
No, I'm pretty much the same there on you, at least on that aspect. Just, again, it's not about the humans kind of thing, it's more about the monsters. But again, even still, you know the characters, you know how they're gonna end. So I don't know. Even still, for this being a remake and knowing, like even Fuego said, kind of how it was gonna end, who's gonna win with, you know, Kong and Godzilla kind of thing. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, sometimes you want a movie to go a certain way, and you get pissed off if it doesn't.
Yeah.
And so that, I mean, maybe that is a situation here where some people would have been pissed if Kong somehow won this fight, because I mean, come on, let's be fair here.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing though. It's like, even still, like with Godzilla, like he's been around, I would say, probably longer, and he's more experienced with fighting versus what Kong would be. He's been stuck on an island. Godzilla has the whole goddamn world.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, also the only assumption that I can make about the fact that Godzilla couldn't figure out where Kong was and have that...
That still made no sense.
Well, I mean, maybe since he was under that dome and he was in this weird protective sort of situation, maybe that's why Godzilla couldn't hone in on him. I mean, that's really the only justification I can give there.
But even before and everything, even before that dome was put up, when Kong was just on the island by himself,
true.
where was Godzilla in that? Because technically he was around at that same time. But I don't know.
The other thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned in the spoiler is that Kong talks now.
That honestly,
Peter, go this way. Like he's straight up. He's Congo ape at this point.
Yeah.
He can sign home.
Honestly, though, that really didn't bother me in this movie, just because, like, again, we've taught apes, fucking sign language.
I agree,
Why
but
not?
did a 7-year-old teach Kong sign language?
But she's
Damn right.
deaf. She's deaf, though. It's the word. It's the association and everything. I don't know. And I'm not defending a fucking.
I'm just saying. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen before you can actually teach an ape sign language.
I understand that and everything,
And
but
you can't be 7.
Well, it's clearly, movie. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm
He's
saying.
with a
Like,
big-
a couple
Yeah,
of things
no,
you have to
yeah.
just kind of accept, story-wise.
Yeah.
Trying to see what else I said in my notes here. I did like that it was ultimately a happy ending. So Kong wins, Godzilla wins basically with the help of Kong. So Kong saves Godzilla by jumping in on Mechagodzilla before Mechagodzilla can put away Godzilla. But Kong can't stop Mechagodzilla until Godzilla charges his axe. And then, not only that, but the worst thing that I wanted to talk about in the spoiler section, let's get into it. Mechagodzilla only loses because fucking Russell from Deadpool 2 pours a drink into a computer. A la The Thing from 1982.
Yep.
No! I'm sorry. I'm probably yelling too loud for my own health. I'm going to get my ass beat by my lady. But, so, he's literally trying to hack Mechagodzilla somehow, even though Mechagodzilla has achieved AI autonomy, right? But somehow he's connected enough to the mainframe where when Russell pours the cop from Child's Play's holstered whiskey into the computer, it delays Mechagodzilla enough for Kong to have his axe charged and then slice up Mechagodzilla. Like, that's too many coincidences that need to line up, but B, really? Fluid in the computer is what stops Mechagodzilla?
Well, I mean, there's so much
Convenience.
of these people
It's
just go,
convenience.
yeah, super easy, barely inconvenience,
Exactly. What was that? Is that okay? How are we going to be able to wrap this up and everything, kind of thing? Well, no, that's basically, I feel, what they were trying to do. We have this one big final showdown. We gotta kind of give them some sort of an advantage, some point, kind of thing. What are we gonna do?
The way that they were so easily able to go through these highly secured sectors.
That too. They should have gotten shot the shit up.
I was face palming, and it was just like, okay. And then even Millie Bobby Brown's father, he just shows up in Hong Kong. You know?
She all of a sudden, she's going down the street. Yeah, she's going down the street yelling "Dad," and it's like, "Oh God, you're there! How the fuck did you get there? You didn't even." First off, that phone call couldn't hear shit from what she was saying. How the fuck did you know she was in Hong Kong?
Yeah, I'm in Hong Kong.
And also, how did you get there so quick?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure you're back in the States, bro.
Yeah,
you mean the
Pensacola, right?
The intra-Earth tunnel that exists that doesn't exist?
Yeah, you're going like fucking 1,200 miles an hour or some shit.
I do love Kong's affinity for ripping heads off of stuff. I was really into that, and whether it was Mechagodzilla or whether it was those flying bird dinosaur, whatever.
Rips off the head and drinks the blood, even. Like,
yeah,
oh boy,
that was freaking cool.
Yeah,
he was thirsty.
Yeah.
There was definitely some cool stuff, but I mean, there was just a lot of conveniences, a lot of cheese, a lot of unnecessary stuff, and they haven't even mentioned moving on with the Monsterverse from this point. Right? They haven't mentioned any plans for any future movies, so I don't know if this is intended to end it or whatever, and I guess it's okay if they do, right? It's Kong ruling Hollow Earth and Godzilla ruling Earth. By the way, Robert, I do have to mention Hollow Earth is what you must have been talking about in the visualization.
Hollow Earth is exactly what
Hollow
I was
Earth was
talking
dope.
about
It was like, you know, you got the mountains and everything and the trees on the bottom, and then you also had mountains and trees and everything on top. And they'd even showed that the gravity was so close that Kong could literally jump from one gravity to another gravity, and then they never touch on it again. No. Like,
which
how cool would
scene.
it have been to see a kaiju fight in altering gravity like that?
Dude, that would have been sick. Like, especially if they fell down that hole that Godzilla burned through.
By the way, yeah. So his atomic breath is just strong enough to literally. He can literally burn through the earth with his atomic breath now.
Well, not to mention, if clearly he used up most of his fucking energy doing that, just pissing it away. He could use that at the end with Mechagodzilla.
Just to like yell in a hole, just to walk
like,
away.
Oh, you're down there.
And then he just fucking bounces until Kong claws out.
Yeah.
And then he's like,
yeah.
I did find that stare down pretty satisfying, though, I must say. You know, I was into it.
So, yeah, I don't know. Any other spoilers you guys want to discuss?
Really? Because now you're going to make me start, like, thinking about it more and nitpicking and shit. And
Oh,
just let
you
me
mean
enjoy
actually critiquing it instead of just
You know, I
taking
am
it at face value?
No, fuck you, all right? I don't have to take that shit.
How dare you?
How dare you?
At the end of the day, man, I mean, I had enough fun with this movie where it like nitpicking would be easy, but I am especially curious as to if they are going to forge forward, especially since this film has already made like over $100 million overseas. They're expecting this is going to be the first like post-pandemic sort of film that's going to make some major money, and you better believe that if it does have those sort of returns, that like, what does Legendary do? Because I know there's like weird rights tied up with Toho and the fact that, you know, Toho with the Godzilla character and everything. And
you go Godzilla and Kong versus Pacific Rim.
Well, that's what this man.
Honestly, no. What they really need to start doing is bringing some of the space kaiju in, because obviously, like King Ghidorah technically was from space, but there's still so many more out there. And then hell, even in the next one, you can introduce Jet Jaguar. Why not? Because he was a protector along, you know.
If we got Mechagodzilla, there's no ruling out Jet Jaguar. Like, Mechagodzilla truly is a silly fucking idea to put in a giant, multiple hundreds of $1 million kaiju movie. The fact that we got Mechagodzilla, frankly, shocks me. They could have gone. They could have gone kaiju for the next 3 or 4 movies if they wanted, and it still would have worked well. But the fact that you got a mecha kaiju.
No, I honestly, like I said, I expected it just because of on how far we are technically on the building of the universe. Now it's mankind's kind of like, all right, well, we gotta have that weapon.
There's still a couple of Godzilla creatures we haven't even gotten yet. We haven't gotten Biollante. We haven't gotten the hedgehog, like armadillo guy or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, even all those guys and everything, but. I don't know. Some of those could be maybe smaller little tidbits. Maybe you just see them kind of in the background, depending.
So what do you do though? Now that you've merged them, can you re-separate them? Now do we go back to Godzilla and Kong movies, or is it now just Godzilla and Kong versus Mecha King Ghidorah and like the Mecha Squad or something like that?
Well, that's the thing though.
Well, I'm asking you guys.
Well, yeah, with like Godzilla, obviously we could still have more singular Godzilla movies, especially with. Like I was saying earlier, with all the space kaiju and things like that, they don't have to be from Earth, so they can still expand with all that, and then keep the Earth kaiju for Kong shit because he's down below. If they still decide obviously to separate them like that, or they tag team him back up here and there in every other movie.
Did you guys get the impression that there were way more skull crawler eggs than were needed to just train a Mechagodzilla? Like, why does Monarch have so many Skullcrawler eggs?
Evil Corporation, I don't know.
Alright, well,
like, you know,
too much unexplained.
Yeah, just as paper thin of a villainousness as there could have been. No, I actually wasn't that enthralled by Mechagodzilla in this. It didn't feel like as big an epic as I was kind of anticipating.
I don't think he got enough to do.
No, he definitely didn't. I would have definitely liked to have seen more screen time for Mechagodzilla, and a little bit better of a redesign.
Well,
he seemed pretty anorexic, honestly.
He seemed pretty segmented. He didn't feel like
that too.
Kaiju. He felt like a build. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there were theories, right, that they thought that, with Godzilla doing the initial attack that we get earlier in the film, that was actually going to be Mechagodzilla with that, like, flesh covering.
Because that's what happened in the original. Mechagodzilla started like Godzilla, and then the flesh tore away and stuff. Yeah. But that would have been too much. So here's a couple of problems that I had. So the Mechagodzilla of it all, like, he was all fine and dandy, but he wasn't that imposing, and he didn't prove to be much of a threat. He was autonomous AI, but he had no reason to actually fight anything. You know what I mean? Like, he just became autonomous because it was a different power source, and that was stupid to me. But not only that,
they did say, I think they did mention something too. They used the blood or DNA from Ghidorah in the whole designing of Mechagodzilla. No, that's where I'm saying, like, kind of that whole motivation kind of came from.
Okay. Well, the second point I was going to make is that what I found in this movie, possibly why I didn't like it as much as Kong Skull Island or Godzilla King of the Monsters, is because when your two protagonists are just meant to fight each other, but neither of them actually wants to fight each other. They're both protectors of humanity, and it's just a matter of waiting until they realize why and how and all this stuff. It's not fun to watch, like the fights in King of the Monsters or even Kong Skull Island to me. When you want them both to be good and just fight against something else rather than fighting each other, I don't take as much pleasure out of the fights against each other, because it's like, it just feels like trite, unnecessary stuff until they discover the real purpose. But I know that's movie and all that, but I can't help it. I can't help it makes me feel that way.
Yeah. The stakes feel lower. They genuinely do, unfortunately, and I don't think a viewer is as invested when they have that predictability aspect that I was mentioning earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like an exhibition fight in, boxing or whatever, as opposed to a championship bout, so to speak, where there's, so much bigger stuff on the line.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that covers my thoughts on Godzilla vs. Kong. Any other spoilery topics you want to discuss, guys, or did we cover pretty much all of it?
No, I think we're about there, yeah.
Yeah, I think we hit them.
All right, so if you guys have any other thoughts, let us know what they are in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the movie, if you didn't enjoy the movie, why not? What did you like? What didn't you like? If you're going to spoil things, please label it in the comments as spoilers and give like a couple blank spaces so people don't have it spoiled just as your comment scrolls through. We greatly appreciate it, you guys. Until next time, though, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel. And if you guys want to become a patron, the link is in the description box. But if you don't want to do that, if you just want to support us, feel free to click the like button and subscribe. Ding that notification bell to make sure you don't miss episodes in the future. But for now, I've been Cecil Laird.
Gracias, I've been Jaime and Fuego.
Robert Duell.
And remember, stay scared.
Stay scared.